Craig, giving the speech, nail that job interview by not preparing.
I'd like you to imagine, if you will, you find yourself in an unfamiliar place with a strange person sitting across from you, staring at you, watching you, waiting for you to make some kind of error, tell some kind of half-truth, lie. You're not a suspect in a murder investigation. You are an applicant at a job interview. Each and every one of us here is likely to find ourselves in a job interview in pursuit of that perfect job. I'd like to share with you some insider information that might turn some of your dread into hopefulness, maybe even enthusiasm. So I know a guy who went to over 100 job interviews in a little over 2 years. And when you say to yourself, what moron would go to that many job interviews, that moron was me. I wasn't looking for employment, not in all of them anyway. You see, I was responsible for hiring and interviewing people for a company of 120 employees. The things that I learned, I can sum up in a single sentence. The key to a successful job interview is not preparing what you are going to say. I want to share a few things with you that will hopefully shed some light on this counterintuitive notion. First, the fear of the job interview process is rooted in some misconceptions. Secondly, the interviewer is looking for a specific set of traits. And third, I want to teach you what a real measure of success is for a job interview. So, according to a Corinthian College's survey of over 1,000 adults, 92% of them fear something about the job interview process. 92% makes me feel pretty good about being anxious because we must be in some pretty good company. The culture of dread that surrounds the job interview process is not real. Yes, we feel it, but I want to explain. The first one of these misconceptions is that I need this job more than this company needs me. That's totally false. As the guy that was responsible for filling those positions, I can tell you I was desperate for good people. I was desperate for somebody that could fill that job. Without you, there is no company. The next one is that the resume is going to be the focal point of your interview. According to Che Wong, who is the CEO and founder of a billion-dollar company called Boxed Inc., he said, when I interview somebody, I take their resume, I set it aside, and I ask them to tell me something about themselves that cannot be on that resume. They're forced to talk about who they actually are. And those responses need to be organic. It really can't be contrived. So now that we've covered a couple things that maybe aren't true about the hiring process, what is? The interviewer is looking for a specific set of traits. According to a Harvard Business Review article, they say, quote, the most important thing to get across in an interview is not that you are smart and motivated. It's that you are trustworthy. I cannot agree with this more. When I was hiring, I was looking for a specific trait. It was sincerity. I had to know I could trust you with my most valuable asset. It wasn't the equipment in the factory. It wasn't the office equipment inside. It wasn't even the customer. It was my other employees. So let's assume you've blown through the job interview and you want to know, did I nail it? Getting the job is not the measure of a successful job interview. I want to go over the idea that if you come to a job interview and you present yourself honestly, that you are who you are, that's a successful job interview. The real measure of a successful job interview process is not whether or not you got the job, it's whether or not you got a job that fit you and the employer. If it doesn't fit you or the employer, there's going to be stress. There's going to be disappointment. Probably both. So now that I've shown you a couple pages from the other team's playbook, I want to repeat this. The key to a successful job interview is not preparing what you are going to say. Fear of the process is rooted in myth. The interviewer is looking for a specific set of traits that you already possess. And getting the job is not the measure of success. It's getting the right job. Preparing to be somebody you're not in a job interview is like lying on a first date. It might get you a second date, but will do little to help you find your match. Unless, of course, they're a liar too. Thank you. Any questions? Everybody's freaked out.
How did you go about doing all those interviews that you weren't even really trying to get hired?
That's a good question.
No, I wasn't looking for a job.
Right.
I was hiring.
Oh, I got you.
So I had to interview
Right.
a lot of people.
Okay.
And sincerity really was the thing I was looking for. Anybody else? Yes.
When was the last time you were on the other end of an interview?
For a job or just an interview for some other process? Because I've interviewed for things when I wanted to rent a facility or do something else. But the last time I was on the other end of a job interview, it's been a minute. It was probably in 2011, is my guess, thereabouts. About the same time that this was happening, by the way. Anybody else? Yes?
How did you make that person you were interviewing feel comfortable? Like, because you obviously know they're going in because they need this job and or want this job. They're nervous. They don't really know they don't know if they're prepared or not.
So I immediately wanted to weed out the people with the canned answers because the canned answers were obvious. My uncle was a homicide detective. He taught me a technique. It was to ask somebody a question that they absolutely do not expect. What's your favorite music group? You ever been on a hike at that place? Have you ever done this or that? And as soon as you get them talking about that, their train of thought, their script was gone, and they talked. And sometimes said things that were bizarre and outrageous, but they were totally comfortable at that point. Anybody else? Do I need to stand up here for the next component?
You don't have to. No.
Okay.
If you want to, you can.
Anybody or just the people that listen?
529.
Thank you. Hang on, sorry, 520.
Right.
529.
Are we supposed to give feedback?
Yes.
All right. I
Somebody.
thought that you paced yourself really well.
Pacing or?
No, like
Oh,
your
okay.
timing.
Thank
like
you.
really slowed down and everything.
You had good reference material, too.
Thank you.
I liked your attention grabber.
Oh, did you? Okay. I kind of ruined it because the name of the speech gave it away, but
I know. I thought about that, and I was like, but there we go.
Hey, do I give feedback?
yes, you can.
Okay. Well, I thought you presented yourself very well. It looks like you really rehearsed. You came across very well with the information. You didn't seem at all nervous about it, and your pauses were on point. It gave me time to take in the information that you presented, which was very helpful, by the way, because I think we all could use some advice when it comes into interviewing for anything. And overall, you're really good prepared. You came across really well, like you've talked to large groups before. So pretty impressive.
Thank you. I was nervous, by the way, so there you have it.